Imagine you wake up one morning with a headache. Nothing special. It's a headache. You've had 100 of them. By the afternoon, you have a fever. By the evening, something is swelling under your arm. By the next morning, you can't stand up. You won't see the day after that. The world before the storm. It's 541 CE, and the Roman Empire, against all odds, is fighting its way back. Emperor Justinian I has been on the throne for 14 years, and he is obsessed. Not with parties, not with war for war's sake. He is obsessed with one dream: to rebuild the old Roman Empire. All of it. Spain, North Africa, Italy. And insanely, it's actually working. His general Belisarius is a military genius. His legal reforms will shape Western law for 1,000 years. The Hagia Sophia, one of the greatest buildings ever constructed, is rising from the ground in Constantinople as we speak. This is a civilization at the top of its game. But somewhere, deep in the warm belly of Central Africa, something else is waking up.
Don't let the size fool you. This thing, this tiny, brainless, absolutely merciless bacterium will kill more human beings than any war, any famine, any disaster in recorded history. And in 541 CE, it is just beginning its career. Here's the supply chain of death. Yersinia pestis lives in fleas. The fleas live on rats. The rats live wherever humans store food. And where was the greatest concentration of stored grain in the ancient world? Egypt. Specifically, the port of Pelusium on the eastern edge of the Nile Delta, one of the busiest trading hubs in the Mediterranean world. The grain ships leave Egypt every season, loaded to the brim, heading for Constantinople. Hundreds of thousands of tons, enough to feed a city of 500,000 people. The rats come with the grain, the fleas come with the rats, and the bacteria come with the fleas. Nobody knows it yet. Nobody sees it coming. It's just another season's harvest on its way to the capital. But those ships are carrying the most dangerous cargo in human history. Let's call him Marcus. We don't know his name, but someone like him was almost certainly the first person in Constantinople to die of what was coming. A dock worker, strong, used to long days and hard work. Proud of it. A flea bites him. He scratches, moves on. 3 days later, he's feverish. Can't explain it. Probably just the heat. 5 days later, his lymph node here is the size of an egg. Then an orange, hot to the touch, agonizing. This is a bubo. That's where we get the word, bubonic plague. And Marcus, our hypothetical Marcus, is the match that lights the fuse on the Roman Empire.
The plague hits Constantinople in the spring of 542 CE. At first, it's a few strange deaths in the port districts. Dock workers, sailors, people on the margins. Easy to ignore. Easy to blame on bad luck, bad air, the will of God. But within weeks, it isn't easy to ignore anymore. We don't have to guess about what it looked like. We have a witness. His name was Procopius. He was a historian, a good one, actually, attached to Belisarius's military campaigns. And when the plague arrived in Constantinople, he was there, and he wrote it down. He writes of people dropping in the streets, of the living unable to bury the dead, of bodies stacked in towers because the cemeteries were full, of people who went to sleep healthy and were dead by dawn. He writes of 10,000 people dying every single day. 10,000
1,000 people per day in a city of 500,000. Do the maths.
I cannot say with certainty how many died. I was here. I watched. The sick would babble, see visions. Some would run out into the streets shouting that enemies were coming for them. They were already gone, even while they still breathed. We ran out of places to put the bodies. I don't know if God is punishing us or if the world is simply ending.
Now, here's where we need to talk about the science. Because not everyone dies the same way. Yersinia pestis is, and I mean this as a horrible kind of compliment, surprisingly versatile. Form 1, bubonic. The flea bites you. The bacteria get into your lymph system. Your immune cells rush to the nearest lymph node to fight them. Armpit, groin, neck, and the bacteria breed inside those immune cells. The node swells to something obscene. Fever, delirium, death in about 2 to 7 days in roughly 30 to 60% of cases. Form 2, septicemic. The bacteria get directly into the bloodstream. No swellings, just internal hemorrhage, tissue death, blackening of the skin, which is almost certainly where the later name Black Death came from. This form is nearly 100% fatal, fast. Form 3, pneumonic. The bacteria reach the lungs. Now, and this is the nightmare, now it can spread through the air, through a cough, through breath, no flea required, person to person. Bubonic plague is terrifying. Pneumonic plague is a different category of catastrophe. When pneumonic plague starts spreading, there is almost nothing between it and everyone.
And then something happened that shocked the ancient world to its core. Justinian himself got sick. The most powerful man in the Western world, the man rebuilding Rome, the man who commanded armies across 3 continents. He developed the fever, the buboes. Think about what that meant to people at the time. There was no germ theory. There was no understanding of transmission. If an emperor could be struck down, if God's chosen representative on earth could be laid low by this thing, then who was safe? Nobody. The answer was nobody.
He hasn't spoken in 2 days. The physicians say they have never seen anything like it.
Is he dying?
Half the city is dying. Why would God spare the emperor?
Justinian survived, which is, against the odds, remarkable. But the empire he would return to lead was not the empire that had existed before. Let's talk about the numbers. The plague of Justinian, as historians now call it, didn't just hit Constantinople in 542. It came back again and again and again. The first pandemic lasted roughly 200 years, 541 to around 750 CE. Multiple waves sweeping the Mediterranean, the Middle East, across into Europe. In total, historians estimate somewhere between 25 and 50 million dead. That's between 1/4 and half of the entire population of the affected regions. In Constantinople alone, the initial outbreak may have killed 40% of the city's population. Fields went unplanted, tax revenues collapsed. The armies that Justinian had been building? Gone. The grand reconquest of the Western Roman Empire? Stalled, reversed, buried. And that's before we talk about what happens next. Because, and here is the truly jaw-dropping part of this story,
For a long time, historians argued about whether the plague of Justinian really was bubonic plague. Maybe Procopius was exaggerating. Maybe it was something else. Typhus, smallpox, some other pathogen. Then, ancient DNA science arrived, and it ended the argument completely. In graves dated to the 6th century, across sites in Bavaria, France, and the British Isles, in teeth, where ancient DNA is best preserved, scientists found it. Yersinia pestis, the same bacteria, confirmed, unmistakable. And when they sequenced its genome and compared it to later plague strains, including the Black Death of the 14th century, they found something remarkable. The Justinianic strain and the medieval Black Death strain share a common ancestor. They both descend from the same original lineage of Yersinia pestis. Same family, different branches, different catastrophes, 700 years apart. Justinian's plague was the first outbreak. The Black Death was the second. We call this pathogen a serial killer, but really, it's more of a dynasty.
Here's what 200 years of recurring plague does to a civilization. It breaks the late antique world. The Roman system, the trade networks, the urban populations, the tax base, the military manpower, it all depended on density, on lots of people close together, moving things around. The plague specifically punished density. It ate cities, it ate armies, it ate ports. Into the vacuum left behind, new powers emerged. The Persian Sassanid Empire, already weakened by its own plague losses. The Arab armies that swept out of the Arabian Peninsula in the 630s and 640s, striking an empire that was exhausted, underpopulated, traumatized. Some historians argue that without the plague of Justinian, there may have been no Arab expansion as we know it, no early Islamic caliphate in the shape it took. The map of the medieval world, the entire religious and political geography of the next 1,500 years might look fundamentally different. A flea bit a rat on a grain ship in Egypt, and the world changed.
Here's what strikes me about Justinian. He was one of the most capable rulers in recorded history. Brilliant administrator. Brilliant general, at least in choice of generals. Vast ambition, and the political skill to nearly see it through. And it didn't matter. Not because he was weak, not because he made mistakes, but because something so small it was invisible rode into his city on the backs of the rats, inside the grain that was supposed to feed his people, and dismantled everything he built before his eyes. He lived to be 83. He outlasted the initial pandemic. He kept building, kept legislating, kept trying. But he died in 565 CE, having watched his dream collapse around him. The reconquest he bled for reversed within a generation. The population he needed to sustain an empire halved. The civilization at the top of its game? Gone. Procopius, our witness, our reporter from the wreckage, wrote a secret history of Justinian. A brutal one. He blamed the emperor for everything. But even Procopius had to admit what he'd seen with his own eyes. The first pandemic was over. The second one, the one you've heard of, was still 700 years away. Yersinia pestis was patient.
Perhaps it wasn't the emperor who ended Rome. Perhaps Rome was ended by something that had no name, no face, no army, something that simply arrived